Hello, this is Hyphea podcast, Hyphea project, and today, consultant, policy advisor, researcher in the field of water management and climate change, program leader of Green Climate Solutions at Wageningen University Research, and one of the creators of the Vision Future Map of Netherlands 2120, TIM VAN HATTUM. Hello, Tim. It's pleasure.
Hi.
It's pleasure to have you here. I'm super excited. It's very early on. How you doing?
I'm fine, very excited.
Great. I've seen your TED talk recently, TEDx talk. It's been amazing. So many brilliant points, so many brilliant ideas. But the very first one that I remember at the top of my head is this two sides of the conversation about climate change, positive and negative way to tackle climate change. What do you think? What's your perspective on current state of the world awareness? What do you think majority of people think about climate change?
Well, I think people are starting to feel the effects of climate change nowadays. So I think scientists have been warning us for the impact of climate change already for 40 or 50 years. And now we start to feel what climate change will mean. I see that people are getting concerned about it, and so I think the awareness raising phase is a little bit over. Now we have to really start doing something about it. We have to act. So I think that there's a little bit of change in the mindset also, because people now know that climate change is there.
Gotcha. I remember you opened your TED Talk with a story about talking in a preschool or a school of your child, how you were talking to young people and you've opened. Can you share that story one more time, just so we can be in your shoes?
Yeah, my daughter had when she was 10 years old. She's now 12 years old, but she had a project at school about climate change, about planet Earth. And I talked to her teacher, and I said, I work in the field of climate change. So do you also tell them something about climate change? Because if you talk about planet Earth, you cannot tell them something about the big problem we are facing, and that's climate change. And she said, well, actually, it's not on top of our list, but if you can tell them something, please go ahead. So that's what I did, and I walked to the school with my laptop and a lot of slides about the topic of climate change, and I start telling the story that we are telling a lot, that climate change is becoming a big problem, and that we will face big floods and heat waves and wildfires and droughts. And I show them all these pictures of all over the world, and at that moment I realized that these kids were really, I saw fear in the eyes of these kids. They were getting scared, and actually at that moment I realized that our story, our narrative about climate change, it's spreading fear and not it's not leading to action. So of course I should also show the picture of how the Netherlands will look like when the sea level is rising, and large parts of our country is below sea level. So we have a lot of these future pictures of the Netherlands when the Netherlands is half of the Netherlands is flooded. So I showed them this picture, and I told them that the Netherlands is below sea level, and the sea level is rising because of climate change. And these kids were really. There was one boy, he almost started to cry, and I thought, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. What story are we telling? We have to spread hope and not fear. So that was the moment for me that I thought we really have to change the narrative about climate change, and we have to come up with a positive and a future perspective for people, instead of telling them the story about all the problems we are facing. And that's really important as well. And we have to know, of course, we have to tell them that climate change will create a lot of challenges. But if we want to get people into the action modus, we really also have to tell them where we want to go, the future we want. That's what we have to tell them.
Exactly. I love the sentence you've crafted, a narrative of hope and making climate change sexy. And that, it is something that I'm curious about, because a sexy and beauty and making something cool, especially when talking about younger audience, it's not universal. I can imagine, like, making something so big, so important, we have to be really culturally relevant and approach it from a very different perspectives. And this podcast is one of the attempts to really spread the awareness to younger people, to people who, well, the way I see it right now, you're the representative, one of the people who actually do something about the future. And not a lot of people know about people like you, because you're busy trying to do the change. And you're one of the most vocal people I know when it comes to field of climate change, is because you do TED Talks. When I Google you, when I do YouTube search on you, I can find stuff, but a lot of people just are not so present in social media. And my question here is, when we talk to young people about climate action, what do you see their role in it? The role of young people?
Well, I think the role of young people is essential because, my daughter is 12 years old now. In 10 years, she will go and work somewhere and do something. And I think we have to prepare them for the big changes we have to make. We have to transform everything we do, our energy system, our food system, the way we live, the way we move, what we eat. Everything will be changed in the next decades. And we have to explain our kids why that is so important. But I think we need our kids also to help us to implement all these changes we have to make. And that's a huge challenge we are facing. And we need everybody. Everybody needs to be on board in this transition. So our kids are essential. And when I was explaining them about the climate problem, I thought we don't have to tell them about the climate problem, because we don't have to convince anybody anymore that climate is changing, but we have to explain where we have to go and what changes we have to make. And because we need architects, we need farmers, we need politicians, but our kids are the leaders of the future. So they have to make these changes. Of course, we have to do it as well, but in the next, this is a transition that will take decades, 30, 40, maybe 60 or maybe 100 years. So our kids will play a very important role in that.
Yeah, I totally agree with the perspective. I think one of the topics you've mentioned too was the climate solutions as business opportunities. I think if we're talking about young children, people like 12 years old, 13 years old, preschool, school, this is slightly different audience from people who are in their teens, just getting into being a real adult, paying taxes, looking for their place in the world. People like me, who are really seeing climate change as not really doom and gloom. It's not really that scary. It's more of a natural change. This is going to happen. We know this is going to happen. If you're not convinced this is going to happen, just look at the science. Like if you're not convinced about reality of climate change, I'm not going to convince you. Just look at the science. That's my approach, at least. And seeing that as a natural path, I think a lot of people should know about all those different business opportunities that climate change is bringing to us. That future, filled with all those different technologies. Do you see that around you in Wageningen, in Netherlands? Do you see a lot of people, young people, engaging with sustainable technologies, with playing with business opportunities, rely on like new materials, new tech? Do you see that?
Yeah, I think that it's in the starting phase, but there are a lot of new technologies. There are a lot of startup companies that come up with new innovations that all are parts of the puzzle, because we are making a very big puzzle, and we need the thing with climate change is that there is not one solution, because then it was easy to solve, and we need many different solutions, and there are all kinds of technologies that all are a part of the puzzle into the world we want to, or in the direction we want to go. And for instance, electric cars are a part of the solution, but I think Tesla has made electric cars sexy, and now every car company is making an electric car, and it will take the next 30 years to replace our whole car park. How do you say it? All the cars in the world towards electric cars.
Car warehousing.
Yeah, it will take time, but there are so many so many different solutions, and that's what I mean with it is a big business opportunity, because we always see like climate change will or climate solutions cost us a lot of money, but if we do nothing, that will cost a lot of money, and climate solutions provide new opportunities, business opportunities, but also to create a better and more attractive surrounding and a more attractive country.
Future, yeah. I mean, one of the reasons I'm so interested in your work is behind you right now is the future map of Netherlands, and I think it's time we talk just a little bit about this, because this is huge. This is an absolutely inspiring visionary document map. Sorry, which shows the future of Netherlands in 2120. And when I was researching that and we were talking about this, it's filled with nature-based solutions. It is a roadmap that was very positively accepted by the people in Netherlands. Can you just, I know you told me that story, but I think it's fascinating how the story behind this map getting viral. You've created that map, right? At some point, how did it happen? How did it get viral?
Yeah, it was great actually. Well, we created this story. We started to create this story in 2019 with a group of researchers at Wageningen University Research, because we wanted to put nature-based solutions on the map, because we think working with nature and what we call nature-based solutions, so protect and restore nature, is a large part of the solution. And we said, if we want to create a story of the future we want or where we want to go, actually you need a map, because if you want to go somewhere, if you travel somewhere, you use a map to know where you want to go. So we thought, let's put nature-based solutions literally on the map. And well, that's what we did. So we presented this story on a conference in the Netherlands, and we put it on the internet. And we thought, okay, let's see what happens, because we thought it was a great story. But let's see if the rest of the world also thinks that's a nice story. And to be honest, the first days nothing really happened, and then. I think after a week or something, a journalist phoned us, and he said to us, "Why is this story not in the newspaper yet?" And I said, "Yeah, you're a journalist. Can better ask you." Well, but be my guest. And he said, "Okay, this is a great story because this shows a positive future, and people need positive, scientific-based perspective for the future where we want to go." So he said, "Okay, I'll put it on. I want to put it in the first newspaper of the new decennium. So that's the newspaper of the 2nd of January." So there was a big story about our vision of the future of the Netherlands in the first newspaper of 2020, and then and then it went viral, because then it was we were called by the news and by a talk show, a very famous talk show in the Netherlands, Buitenhof, and we had we were invited everywhere to talk about this story, because we experienced that people really need this kind of information. They know that climate is changing, they know that biodiversity is a big problem, and they know all the problems we are facing if you do nothing, but they want to have some kind of a roadmap where we want to go, and that's what we made.
This is brilliant. Yeah, I'm fascinated by the how extensive this map needs to be, and what is the next step with the map? I know you told me that, but for the people listening right now, so you have a map of Netherlands, map of that is filled with nature-based solutions, which can be 30% of all solutions that we need to do to adjust to climate change. You are able to show it visually. What is the next step? What do you want to do with this?
Well, of course, we want to create a map, but it's very important that this is a vision. We made this story to open the discussion and to give another perspective of our country. And what we also did is we turned the map. So we normally present our map of the Netherlands when the north is up north, and what we did is we turned the map upside down, we turned it
rotated it like 90 degrees.
90 degrees. To give another perspective of our country and to make people think. So we didn't. This is not a plan. We are scientists, and we cannot say this is how the Netherlands will look like in the future. But it is to open the discussion that we need a long-term perspective of how to, because the Netherlands is a very small country, and part of our country is below sea level, and we are one of the most densely populated countries in the world. We are very small. We have a lot of agriculture. We have a lot of people, a lot of traffic. So and climate change will create a lot of problems. So we really need to rethink how we will design the Netherlands. We have to redesign our country, and we have designed, and the Dutch have designed the Netherlands. Without people, there was not the Netherlands. So we have been designing our country for centuries, but now we really have to redesign our country. Mm-hmm. And that story, we are talking with that story with a lot of institutes, ministries, governments, municipalities, water authorities, farming organizations, and so and what we want to do with it is to open a discussion that we need this long-term perspective and really need to think about this redesigning of our country, but we also want to realize these nature-based solutions, because working with nature is really the way forward. So we cannot keep increasing the height of our dikes, because when they break, it will create a lot of problems. So we have to give our rivers more space, and we have to create more forests, and we have to make our cities much more green, and we really want to realize that. So that's what we want to do with it. So make sure that our map will be reality in the future, and it will take. We will not do that in a year, especially not during this Corona crisis. But we have to start today. That's the important message, because it's a vision for 100 years, and it seems 100 years seems a long, that we have a very long time, and that we can wait doing something. But the message is the future starts today. So we have to start acting today to create the map for 2120.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know where it was, but you've said something about how peoples have seen the map of Netherlands 2120, and they ask, why do we have to wait so long for this amazing future that awaits us?
That's exactly what we want to realize. That reaction is very important. That people that we showed a future that we want, and that creates an action modus in people. So people start wanting to do something. And if you say our country will be flooded and everything will be there will be wildfires and floodings and droughts, then people think, what can I do? I cannot do something about it.
I just want to curl up in my bed and I'm just gonna wait.
Put Netflix on and then I see the movie of David Attenborough.
Oh, exactly. So to bring action to people, I think that is exactly my friend. Yeah, I'm talking a lot about this with my friends, with my younger friends, and it's exactly what we need in this. But in order for us to get on the same board, I think we all need to agree to certain ways we can see the future, and map is one of the ways to do it. I know you mentioned something about challenging other countries, and I found that really inspirational. Like, you have a map as Netherlands. Would you challenge other countries, such as Poland, for example, or Germany or France, so they can do their own? And if so, do you think every country has enough data? They can, what kind of data are you using to create a map like this? You say it's a vision board, so I assume there's a lot of places in between that are kind of filled with imagination, but you base something. You base that map on something. Can you share what it is?
Sure. Well, I think that the most important point is that we also created design guidelines, 5 guiding principles for redesigning our country. And the first thing we said is that the natural system, so our landscape, our soil, our water systems, our nature reserves, that's our natural system, and that's the basis for redesigning our country. So our country is divided in different kinds of soils. The soil type is very important of what you can do there. We have sandy areas. The more higher areas of our country is more sand, and the more low-lying areas is more clay. And we said, for instance, okay, for our plant-based food production, we need the best soils to provide for our food production. Our sandy soils, these are the places where we have a lot of troubles with droughts. So there we have a lot of water shortage problems. And our country at this moment is totally designed to get rid of all the water as soon as possible, because water was our friend and our enemy a little bit. So because we are a low-lying country and we had a lot of agriculture, our water management system is created to get rid of the water. So we move all the water as soon as possible to the sea. But now, because of climate change and also because of our own water management system, we're starting to realize that we need to actually we need every drop of water. We need to use it for our agriculture, but also for our nature, because also our nature reserves are drying up. And that means so our water and our natural system and our soil systems are really important to start thinking of how we want to redesign our country. And also, where do we want, because we are building 1 million new houses in the Netherlands in the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody is asking the question, where should we actually, in a smart way, build these houses? So they're all planned in the low-lying parts of our country. And we know, we say in the next 100 years, our country will not be flooded because of sea level rise yet. And it all very much depends on how, if we reach the Paris Agreement, well, then we are safe. But if we don't reach the goals of the Paris Agreement, then the sea level could rise more and more. And then, then the western part of our country is really at risk.
You said something about Paris Agreement. I know it's a polarizing topic. Would you mind telling me, do you think we can make it as to keep the temperature?
That's a very big question. I think I'm still hopeful, but in the meantime, I think if we really want to reach the Paris Agreement, we have to do much more than we are doing at the moment. So there's really a momentum now. The next 10 years will be essential. If we don't do what we promised to do in the next 10 years, it will be not possible to reach the Paris Agreement, I'm afraid. So we really have to act now. And the climate negotiations were postponed or because of Corona. So the COP, the big climate conference, yearly climate conference in Glasgow, was postponed to next year. And that doesn't help, of course, because we really need to move on. And the Corona, we are now so busy with Corona, and Corona is a big problem. Of course, we really need to do something about that. But well, a lot of people say Corona is just it's just a very small problem
comparing to
climate change and loss of biodiversity. So we cannot focus on Corona alone and delay all the climate action we have to make.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I know it's not really that optimistic to talk about how negotiations are really getting us nowhere. I know we've been, like, as humanity, we've been trying to negotiate our way out of climate change for the past 30 years. And it all boils down to money, at least from my perspective. And from the perspective, I was doing some kind of courses on what is the problem with climate negotiations. And it really is about how more wealthy countries, like what's the setup between wealthier countries and poorer countries when it comes to having time for development using fossil fuels, because that's like the fast way. I don't want to get into all that. It is very, it could be very negative. But I want to ask you about one particular technology that I keep hearing about. I even keep talking with people about it. It's a direct carbon capture, the technology that is supposedly designed to take carbon oxide and just suck it out of the air. Do you think it's possible? I mean, it is possible, but do you think is it a viable way of thinking about the future too?
Yeah, to be honest, we really need to investigate these kind of solutions. But to be honest, I believe much more in transforming towards a carbon-free world. So I think we have to reduce our emissions much more. And in the meantime, we have to absorb all the emissions that are already there. We have to take them out of the atmosphere by natural solutions. And carbon capture is a technology. Well, there's still a lot of research to be done to prove that it works. And I think the natural system has already 3.8 billion of R&D experience, because the best way to take carbon out of the air, carbon dioxide out of the air, is by trees and plants. They are very good at that, and that's the story we are telling also for the Netherlands. And I think we could tell a story like this for the rest of the world, to show that if we start working with nature, that is the best way to take carbon out of the air, because we can store a lot of carbon in our landscape, in our soils, in our oceans, in our wetlands, and in our forests. And well, there's a lot of research already done about these nature-based solutions, technologies. And the message is that they can help the Paris Agreement for a third. They can, so nature, investing in nature can solve and it can help us reach the Paris Agreement for a third of the problem. So, and it has so many other benefits, because it also helps to restore biodiversity. That could be even a bigger challenge than climate change. So and it helps to make the air more clean, and it helps to make us more or less stressful and more healthy. And so it has a lot of benefits for people as well. So investing in nature has so many multiple benefits that it's almost a no-brainer. And maybe it's such a no-brainer that we sometimes forget about it, because we want to solve everything by technological solutions, such as this carbon capture technologies. I think that's why do we need these technologies when we could use natural solutions that also provide so many other benefits for nature and people.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. Kind of leads me to an interesting book you've mentioned on our previous call, Wizards and Prophets. Remember that one? It is a book by Charles C. Mann. And I have not read the book yet, but I've seen the TED talk with him. And I think that's a little bit something that you're touching upon right now, that wizards are we are on the same boat, wizards and the prophets. And the wizards are people who believe that we can find our technology and use the technology and use that to solve all our problems. And the prophets are on the opposite. Do you find yourself thinking in those terms, or do you see that this conversation not really interesting and not valid? Like, what do you think? Are you a wizard or a prophet? Like a map, I can tell you, like when I look at a map at the vision of the future, that is a little bit like wizard kind of thinking. Like we can design our way, and I love this approach. But at the same time, prophets thinking in terms of ecological limits and how nature is really the solution. And this is also an interesting point, because we talk about nature as if it's not us. That's
yeah.
I keep finding even myself. I keep talking about how nature this and nature that, and we have to go be in nature more. But we are nature. We embody the nature. We are literally the nature. So
absolutely.
What's up with that, man?
Yeah, I really love this book of The Wizard and the Prophet, and it really explains and how the world is divided between people that really think we have to think in the world is going to collapse, and we have to the prophets, they say we need less and less and less. We have to stop economic growth, and we all have to become vegetarians, and the wizards say we can solve everything with smart solutions and technologies, and don't worry, we will work our way out. And these two camps have to come together. I think that's really important. And that's also a little bit what we wanted to show with our map, because I think our map is a little bit of both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
We have to bring these wizards and prophets together, and also literally together. So we have to put them in a room together, and we have to start talking, and not, but also listening to each other. Because if you start saying, I think we cannot solve everything with technologies alone, and it's also not needed that we have to stop doing everything that we are doing. So I think we can create a very attractive and a nice world if we bring these smart technology thinkers and the planet thinkers, so the wizards and the prophets together, and start thinking about the future we want and how to create this future we want. And I think that's that will be the way forward. And I think our map is a little bit telling that story, but it's not so much technology based. It's still very much nature based. So in that sense, it's more a profit approach. But what you say, we are designing or redesigning our country. So that's a little bit the wizard approach. But I think on top of our map, our nature-based storyline of the future of the Netherlands, we can still add a lot of smart technologies.
Mm-hmm.
And then our story will even become much better. So that's also one of the things we want to do in the next coming years, to make it a more wizard, to add some wizard technologies in our map.
It seems like you're talking about the third group, which is like realistic visionaries who kind of like take best from both worlds. I think, I know it's a little bit like, well, I see climate change and I see everything that we're talking about, all those different solutions, like having science be more present in everyday life. Everybody needs to be a little bit of scientist right now to understand why we need to change certain things, why there's need for behavioral change, why there's a need for systemic change. And the way I see it, the way I keep myself positive and optimistic about this, is that this is kind of like a test for humanity that we can pass, and we can really raise above this and really start looking at Earth as something that we navigate this spaceship that is flying through the cosmic ocean. That is something we manage our resources in a smart way. We understand the problems. We understand the dynamics. There's so much stuff we don't know about yet, right? Like the ocean. Like the ocean's so undiscovered just yet, and it feels like we know what we are doing. But I keep finding all those evidence that we don't really, and I think that's the majority of people start to realize right now that we really thought we knew it all, but I don't think we know. Like we need people like you who actually do, the research and know what they're talking about. And I think we're on the brink of something huge over here, and we are seeing it just from the different perspective. Like looking back from, let's say, 100 years from now, we're gonna have this beautiful world where it may be different from what we imagine right now. We're gonna look back and realize that was a huge moment in our lifetimes. That was the moment where we really started to see both sides of the coin at the same time. And just one thing, I know you may not be prepared for this right now, but if given a chance for 30 seconds of 100% focus of every human on the planet, what would you say to people? Let's say for 30 seconds everybody's listening to you. with 100% focus. They do not they don't do anything else. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say that the world is facing a big challenge, and we know climate change and biodiversity are the biggest challenges we are facing at this moment. But we know exactly what we have to do. We know what kind of solutions we have on the table, and we can apply them on a massive scale. And I think one of the most important messages would be that working with nature and nature-based solutions, protecting and restoring nature, is one of the biggest solutions we sometimes seem to forget. And if we apply these kind of solutions on a massive scale, then our world will become climate-proof, climate resilient, but also much more attractive, with place for nature and also place for people and healthy people. So I think we have to stop being afraid and start doing something about it and creating a future, a nature-based future we want. And we can start doing that today by start greening our own surroundings and start doing something about it, instead of thinking that we have to solve the coronavirus first because we then start doing something about climate change. We have to start doing something today.
I love it. I love the fact that you said green your surroundings. I think that's something a lot of people look for, this thing that they can do. And yeah, whenever you have a chance, go to the forest, take a trash bag and start picking up the plastic, or start taking care of the plants. Yeah, I think you're totally right. Well, you're way smarter than me, so who am I to tell? Let me ask you this: if people want to connect with you, reach out to you, do you look for particular people right now? Anybody, any specialists? Like, if anybody's listening and stumbled upon this podcast sometime in the future, what kind of people do you look for? And if you look for anybody particular, how they can reach you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn, so that's pretty easy. Well, we're always looking for people that are very interested in this way of thinking, this way of future perspectives of where we want to go. So we are trying to elaborate on what on the work we did so far, but we also have a lot of questions to be answered. We also want to add some technology, the wizard kind of solutions, add to our map. But we also want to create storylines like this for other continents, for instance, for Africa or for Asia, or for Latin America. That would be very interesting, because also there we really need a nature-based approach. So if people are interested in that, I would love to further discuss it.
So if there's somebody in Africa or in Asia and they listen to it and they realize that the map of the future of Africa or their country is something they could start working on, they can just reach out to you and ask questions and start to like collaborate with you. Is that what you're saying? Is that how it works?
Sure. Yeah, I'm very busy, but
so of course,
I cannot promise to help everybody. But but it's. I think this. I think we have to show. We cannot do it from Wageningen alone, of course. So we want to collaborate with other smart people and smart institutes to create this positive storylines for the future. I think the world needs that, because there's a lot of bad news. We know that, and of course we can. We don't have to keep. Listening to this bad news, but we can start acting and doing something and creating storylines, attractive narratives for the future. Mm-hmm. That's what people want to hear. That's what we experienced. And I think that's not only in the Netherlands the case. I think that's everywhere. So, and these kinds of storylines are they get much less attention than the bad news. So let's turn that around and let's create positive future.
Absolutely. On this positive note, let's end this podcast. It was a pleasure talking to you. I'm filled with hope right now, and that's what this project is all about. This podcast project, to spread the message from people like you, to connect people that see this as an opportunity and not an apocalypse. So thank you again, Tim. I'm gonna cut it. We don't have to leave just yet.